I'm explaining a film from 2013 titled Escape Plan. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. The scene begins with a man named Breslin who has just arrived at a prison called Bendwater. He is immediately confronted by one of the gangs that are controlling the prison. Because of opposition and trouble, Breslin was put in solitary confinement. He memorized every room he went through, while in the isolation room. Meanwhile, a car explodes outside the jail, just as the lady exits the vehicle. This, of course, stunned the guards, as well as the convicts, who began to revolt. When the situation became chaotic and Breslin was no longer in his cell, the guards took action by sealing all of the prison's doors. Breslin apparently attempted to flee by disguising himself as a member of the fire department. However, he was quickly picked up by a buddy and handed off at a wayside fast food business. When Breslin was about to call someone, suddenly the police came and started surrounding him. The police caught him and took him back to the prison. He was greeted by a colleague named Clark, who introduced himself to the head of the prison that he was representing a company called BNC Security, a company responsible for the security of national prisons. They were hired by the Federal Service to maximize the security of each prison. Breslin then explained how he was able to escape. There are 3 ways to escape. The first way is to know the layout, then observe the daily activities inside the prison, and the last way is to get help from the outside. Breslin was placed in solitary confinement after beating another prisoner, which caused the guard to be less strict than in a regular cell. After coordinating with his buddy, he began attracting attention at the main entrance around 4 p.m. Before Breslin could proceed, the manager inquired as to how he entered the security code. Breslin said that he used a milk carton since the box included translucent plastic inside, which he referred to as a tool for determining the 4-digit security code that the security will input. After learning the code, he instantly fled the jail with a little drama that he had done previously, such as the prior vehicle explosion, and the prison's head appeared impressed with the manner Breslin escaped. Next, Clark explains that Breslin for about 14 years escaped from every prison he entered, after Breslin finished and returned to his office. Arriving at the office, Breslin immediately organized a meeting with his client named Jessica. This woman expressed interest in Breslin's expertise in testing prison security systems, and she offered to invite him to cooperate in entering a prison with security systems to ensure no one entered. The whereabouts of the prison is said to be unknown, and because the risk is so high, Jessica promises to be paid double what Breslin usually receives. Breslin also agreed and asked when the work would start. Jessica said as soon as possible, and then Breslin would be picked up by their agent. Breslin would disguise himself as Anthony Portos, a Madrid native, to appear as a prisoner. And a guy came and electrocuted him by the side of the road. Breslin was installed in the automobile, and the motion sensor chip that had been inserted previously was also removed. Breslin, as usual, proceeded to explore the layout of the jail when he found himself in a prison he had never seen before. Breslin encountered Hobbs, the prison's leader and architect, after being led into the questioning chamber. Hobbs said that this prison is an international prison. The prisoners also come from many different countries and are certainly serious criminals. Breslin asked for an exit code that the warden should have known, but Hobbs said that there were no such codes or escape codes in the prison. Breslin was brought back to his cell when it coincided with the time when all the convicts were gathered in Block A, where Breslin was staying. Breslin is immediately served by a prisoner being brutally tortured by guards. Then Breslin is approached by a man who tells him to mingle and find some friends. After a time, many men approached and laughed at him as if he were fresh meat. Breslin, not to be taken lightly, quickly punched them first. Then a man came to demand a stop to the battle. The man's name was Emil Rotmeyer. At first, Breslin did not trust the person he had just seen, but Rotmeyer seemed to recognize Breslin. Breslin and Rotmeyer's bond grew stronger by the day, while Breslin continued to pay attention to the prison's layout. Rotmeyer oddly questioned Breslin why he continued glancing around the room, to which Breslin answered that he wished to enter the isolation chamber. So they plotted a plan. They deliberately fought to attract the attention of the guards, so they were put in an isolation room. Sure enough, the guards finally arrived and took them both to the isolation ward. Unlike the prison isolation room he entered before, The isolation room Breslin entered this time was extremely uncomfortable for him, where there was a lot of spotlight and of course hot. And shines directly at the detainees without any barrier. After Breslin was released from the isolation room, Rotmeyer approached him again and asked him what he had found. Breslin only said that he needed a piece of metal. Both out of prison. Rotmeyer agreed and immediately requested the guard to accompany him to Hobbs, who asked him to talk after meeting Hobbs. But, once again, video appears to be a fabrication, since Rotmeyer purposefully said nothing before being tortured by inserting a running water pipe into his mouth. Fortunately, Hobbs did not murder him and returned Rotmeyer to his cell, after which Rotmeyer returned to Breslin and discussed a variety of topics, including wondering what Breslin's true employment was. Breslin claimed to be an escapee, but this time he was recruited to mute and murder slowly rather than escape. Breslin eventually invited Rotmeyer to plan his escape, which is why Breslin always paid attention to the layout of the prison because he wanted to know where he would go if he escaped later. Breslin also explained that he had to return to the isolation ward to examine the secret room below, as he intended to focus the light on the pegs attached to his clothes. So it can make the latch rusty and easy to open. They began to act. Rotmeyer approached a Muslim prisoner named Javed. At first there was a fight between them due to a misunderstanding. They fought and fought, so in the end all three were put in an isolation room. Breslin twists the sweat-soaked shutters. After removing all of the bolts he had put, Breslin lifted the lid and discovered a lengthy ladder descending downwards. Breslin dashed down the ladder, only to discover that he was on a ship in the middle of the ocean, as well as in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, Hobbs goes to Rotmeyer because he continually chatters. Breslin also walks inside, but he accidentally hits the leaky pipe, generating a shower of water that leads him to be flung down again. The water rose to the surface, the guards instantly protected the three of them, and Breslin was able to return to the isolation chamber. A curious Rotmeyer immediately asked Breslin what was the matter. But Breslin was content to keep quiet. On the other hand, Breslin's colleagues began to worry about his condition, asking Clark for information on what Breslin was actually doing. Clark said Breslin was doing a pretty hard job commensurate with the high salary. Then Clark called Hobbs to ask him to separate Breslin and Rotmeyer. Hobbs quickly instructed his men to wake Breslin and torment him. The guards brutally beat Breslin, making him very angry with those who had held him in this cage. The next day, Breslin and Rotmeyer went about their business as usual while studying the situation. They have now executed the ultimate protocol, requesting aid, after feeling confidence in their efforts. Rotmeyer persuaded Breslin not to worry since he had contacts in and out of prison, and everything was okay. Hush, one of Breslin's associates, now knows his whereabouts. Hush manages to track down a prison run by former soldiers. The prison still doesn't have a federal license, so you could say it's illegal. Meanwhile, Breslin began his plan by first going to the prison doctor to treat his injuries. Breslin asked the doctor for help. Besides, he also said that what the doctor did was wrong. Breslin advised him to quit his job immediately and find another more noble job. When Breslin was about to be injected, he deliberately fell down and picked up a piece of paper, and after stitching the wound, Breslin went to Rotmeyer, where they were discussing their escape plan. Breslin required a pair of spectacles to calculate the hexadecimal radii that would allow him to determine half of their places. As Breslin and Rotmeyer prepared to carry out their plan, one of the guards allegedly noticed it and reported it to Hobbs. Hobbs instantly went to Breslin's cell and stated he was searching for someone named Breslin, so now he is not permitted to do anything with Rotmeyer since the people who hired him want Breslin to stay in prison indefinitely. Breslin tries to bargain by offering to arrest Victor X, Mannheim alias Emil Rotmeyer and his network in exchange for Hobbs telling him where the jail is and releasing him. Instead of teaming up with Hobbs, Breslin actually hatched another plan behind his back. Breslin goes back to Rotmeyer and tells him of his plans with Hobbs. At first, Rotmeyer hesitated, but Breslin convinced him. In the end, Javed played his part by pretending he knew all of Breslin's plans with Rotmeyer. He told all this to Hobbs. But before Javed said it all, he asked Hobbs to be allowed to pray in open space so he could look up at the sky, and Hobbs agreed. While praying that Javed would steal the opportunity to measure star lines using the semiconductor Breslin had given him earlier, after success, Javed returned the semiconductor to Breslin to him. Breslin came to findings concerning longitude, wind direction, and water velocity after a lengthy investigation. Breslin, after all, believed they were off the coast of Morocco. Breslin then went to the doctor and requested him to read one of his book's chapters. The chapter comprises a doctor's vows and commitments. The doctor eventually read the chapter out of curiosity, and then instructed the guards to take Breslin to his clinic under the guise of more exams. The doctor asked Breslin what he needed while he was with him. Breslin then smiled, showing that the doctor was on his side. Breslin then tells Rotmeyer that the doctors are fine, it's just a matter of how they convinced Javed to cheat on Hobbs. However, Hobbs apparently discovered their plan after seeing CCTV footage where Breslin is said to be talking to another inmate in Cell C. Hobbs suspects Breslin helped the prisoners in Cell C escape. Finally, Hobbs directed that security be increased in Cell C, whereas Breslin required a lighter to shatter the atmosphere in Cell A. Then Javed stepped up to challenge one of the major crooks. After causing a commotion, other criminals got into a fight, and mayhem ensued. The guards then used smoke bombs to try to calm things down, but the commotion just got worse. Breslin, Rotmeyer, and Javed attempted to flee at this vital juncture, but one of the guards saw their movements via CCTV. Hobbs then orders all of the guards to pursue them away, gunshots are heard, and Breslin and his pals battle the guards with their bare fists because they lack capital. They manage to get some guns after defeating some guards, but just as they were about to escape a step, Javed was shot and had to stop them. Rotmeyer tries to convince Javed that they will escape, but Javed realizes the bullet wound is too severe, so he orders Rotmeyer and the others to leave. With a gun, Javed then challenged the guards and shot them. Unfortunately he had to die because he was hit by countless shots of the guards. Breslin and Rotmeyer decided to go their separate ways. Breslin told Rotmeyer to wait outside in the prepared helicopter. Hobbs and the rest of the guards proceeded to assault Rotmeyer after boarding, while Breslin entered the ship's security control room and switched off all power. Hobbs continues to pursue them, as Breslin attempts to escape the ship. The chopper lowered the ropes for Breslin to climb after sighting him under the waves. Breslin then runs up the steps while Hobbs continues to shoot him. Breslin then obtains a rifle from Rotmeyer from the helicopter, which he promptly fires into the steel tank while Hobbs remains. Breslin yells, "Boom," and an explosion ensues, trapping Hobbs within. They manage to escape and the last prison boat explodes. After landing, the Rotmeyer van arrived. Breslin was surprised when a woman stepped out of the car, who turned out to be Jessica, the CIA agent who had served him. Jessica was Rotmeyer's daughter and confidant at the time, it turns out. Jessica then adds that her father has a unique code, Rotmeyer, which translates to maximum security jail. It also implies that Jessica paid Breslin to get her father out of jail. Rotmeyer thanked Breslin and offered to hitchhike, but he declined. After returning to his workplace, Breslin learned that Clark had been invited to be the CEO of a project dubbed The Tomb. That's why he let Breslin go to jail, but they appear to have exacted their revenge on Breslin by capturing Clark and placing him in a prison in the middle of nowhere at the end of the film. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay updated on future videos. Leave a like to support the channel.